Rise and shine. 6 a.m. and your hand can't make it to the alarm clock before the voices in your head start telling you that it's too early, too dark, and too cold to get out of bed. Aching muscles lie still in rebellion, pretending not to hear your brain commanding them to move. A legion of voices are shouting their unanimous permission for you to hit the snooze button and go back to dreamland. But you didn't ask their opinion. The voice you've chosen to listen to is one of defiance. A voice that says there was a reason you set that alarm in the first place. So sit up, put your feet on the floor, and don't look back, because we've got work to do. Welcome to the grind. For what is each day but a series of conflicts between the right way and the easy way? 10,000 streams fan out like a river delta before you, each one promising the path of least resistance. Thing is, you're headed upstream. And when you make that choice, when you decide to turn your back on what's comfortable and safe and what some would call common sense, well, that's day one. From there, it only gets tougher. So just make sure this is something you want, because the easy way out will always be there, ready to wash you away. All you have to do is pick up your feet. But you aren't going to, are you? With each step comes the decision to take another. You're on your way now, but this is no time to dwell on how far you've come. You're in a fight against an opponent you can't see, but oh, you can feel him on your heels, can't you? Feel him breathing down your neck. You know what that is? That's you. Your fears, your doubts, and insecurities all lined up like a firing squad, ready to shoot you out of the sky. But don't lose heart. While they're not easily defeated, they are far from invincible. Remember, this is the grind, the battle royale between you and your mind, your body, and the devil on your shoulder who's telling you that this is just a game. This is just a waste of time. Your opponents are stronger than you. Drown out the voice of uncertainty with the sound of your own heartbeat. Burn away your self-doubt with a fire lit beneath you. Remember what we're fighting for, and never forget that momentum's a cruel mistress. She can turn on a dime or the smallest mistake. She is ever searching for the weak place in your armor, that one tiny thing you forgot to prepare for. So as long as the devil is hiding the details, the question remains, is that all you got? Are you sure? And when the answer is yes, when you've done all you can to prepare yourself for battle, then it's time to go forth and boldly face your enemy, the enemy within. Only now you must take that fight into the open, into hostile territory. You're a lion in a field of lions, all hunting the same elusive prey with a desperate starvation that says victory is the only thing that can keep you alive. So believe that voice that says you can run a little faster and you can throw a little harder, and that for you, the laws of physics are merely a suggestion. Luck is the last dying wish of those who want to believe that winning can happen by accident. Sweat, on the other hand, is for those who know it's a choice. So decide now, because destiny waits for no man. And when your time comes and 1,000 different voices are trying to tell you you're not ready for it, listen instead to that lone voice of dissent. The one that says you are ready, you are prepared. It's all up to you now. So rise and shine.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, everybody up, everybody up. Let me just do a quick test. This is Cold War Radio on We Are America Radio, WAAR. Here I told my crew the iPad crashed and burned. I didn't press the right buttons, man. I keep changing studios, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Cold War Radio, live from our home base, WAAR. We Are America Radio, your number one source for government and political talk anywhere, coming to you from the Steel City Resistance studio in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr., deep down in the broadcast bunker and far away from Ice Station North studio, somewhere on the Norwegian Sea. Let's welcome Norway back to the program. Come in, Radio Norway.
Good evening, Hutch, and good evening, Stacy and Jack, and good evening to our lovely audience. It's it's actually Sunday the 15th already here, and we should have seen the midnight sun shining in through the windows, but it's there's a thick cloud cover now, so it's kind of murky here.
Well, glad to have you back, and we have a full crew tonight. That doesn't happen every week, but it's great when it does. From the Shenandoah Valley studio in Virginia, please come in, Jack. Jack has a new version of Skype.
Here we go. Here we go. Hello, Hutch, Stacy, and Norway, and everyone in the Spreaker chat room. If I sound a little different, I was in the shop this week and had a little grill work done. I'm working on it with a temporary bridge in the front of my face, so don't adjust your knobs. It's just me.
And finally, from the Empire City of the South studio in Atlanta, Georgia, please come in, Stacey Rush.
Good evening, y'all. Hey, Hutch, Norway, and Jack, I'm glad to be with you. Hope everyone's well.
Outstanding. This ought to be a good one. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to share the show. We've got the all-star panel here, not to try to sound like anybody else, because we're not like anybody else. But please follow me on Spreaker, like the Facebook page, facebook.com/Cold War Radio 22. You can catch the show via Blueberry on your Roku or YouTube, the405media.com. Cold War Radio is also an iHeartRadio program. You can get the Cold War Radio app free in your app store, whether it's Android or iPhone. It makes no difference. The email, hutch@steelcityresistance.com, and the Cold War Radio Patron hotline, 412-567-1460 if you'd like to call the panel. Chat room is up on Spreaker, always the place to be. Please, ladies and gentlemen, go to steelcityresistance.com. You can catch the research room there. Even more importantly, you can become a Cold War Radio patron and decide what we're worth monthly. If you want to send mail, it's Hutch Bailey Jr., P.O. Box 96022, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania 15226. Not too sure how long that's going to stay in existence, but for right now, we'll leave it up. All right, guys, I'll tell you. First of all, let me thank Marlene and Ma Deuce for becoming Cold War Radio patrons. Thank you very much. It's very appreciated. If you guys can do that, go to steelcityresistance.com. It's in the right-hand column. Now, let's get to what's going on. There's so much going on, and I want to try to separate the chaff from the important things. And one thing that's kind of a little bit of both, but it's under my craw, is the way that the President of the United States was treated in England. I don't know if you guys saw that, but there was a pretty big protest. And they tried to have a pro-Trump rally at the United States, the American Embassy. And here's what they did in London. Don't forget, the mayor of London is a Muslim. I was going to say a jihadist, but I don't have any proof of that. But let's listen to what happened.
Okay, so I'm here outside Vauxhall Station, and I was planning to go to the American Embassy to meet with a group of demonstrators who are planning to welcome Trump into the country because he is a fantastic president. He's one of the best presidents of the United States that we've ever had, and it's really good to see him in this country and speaking truth to the people in power in this country. But as I came out of the police station, I was handed this piece of paper by a couple of friendly police officers who were just doing their job, but they've imposed Section 12 Public Order Act conditions on the assembly outside the American embassy, which means that people are not allowed to proceed or have a march or any kind of demonstration. And we've also been told that if I go to the American embassy in a group of 2, 3 or more people, that I'm liable to be arrested myself. So free speech is dead.
Absolutely. I mean, we were just told by the police officers that if we even moved towards the US Embassy, then we could be arrested if we're in a group of 3 or more. I fail to see how a group of 3 or more can be a breach of the Public Order Act. What this is Sadiq Khan not wanting people to express pro-Trump values. And it's very interesting because yesterday, hundreds of thousands of people, allegedly, according to the BBC, were allowed to protest against Trump, and that was fine. There were no restrictions there. But as soon as probably potentially only a few thousand of us want to protest in favour of Trump, show our support for the leader of the free world, we are banned, we are silenced, and we are censored. Share this leaflet. Share this video. Show the world that we are being censored.
Stacey, this is unbelievable to me. We saved this country. We tried very hard to stay out of Europe in World War II, and finally we decided to help Churchill, and we go in and we save this country, and this is what we get.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you I have a friend who just returned from England, and as you guys know, my significant other is from England as well. And the comment that my friend made when she got back was, there are no Londoners in London anymore. And it's true. I mean, there are so many migrants into Europe and into the UK that some of it is not surprising. Surprised by the numbers that showed up against Trump, but I'm not surprised that they shut down a gathering in support of President Trump near the embassy. It's a sad state of affairs. It truly is. I'm of the mindset that I think that England is already gone, and I think they'll be knocking on our doors to help them, but that will all depend on the direction of this country and how engaged the United States citizens are to right the course of our nation, because our nation is not going to be saved in 8 years. We've got a long way to go. So they may knock on our door to help them in the future, and we may not be able to do that as well, depending on the choices that we make. But it was a disgrace, in my opinion.
Norway, let me show my American ignorance and ask you: is Oslo the capital of Norway?
Oslo is the capital of Norway.
What would happen if President Trump came to Oslo?
It's hard to say now, because Oslo is experienced much of the same thing we see in London with extreme immigration. We have the start of no-go zones actually around the police headquarters in that part of the city. There are numerous Muslims, and they have more or less taken control of that area. So things are definitely starting to look like London in Oslo as well. I think there would be protests. There are a lot of socialists in Norway, but people are more. I don't know how to describe Norwegians, but we're more reserved. So I don't think you would see the crazy protests you see by Muslims in London. But I think you would see protests, and I'm sure you would see counter protests, because there are still a lot of good Republican-minded Norwegians in Norway as well.
Now, I did see a lot of white people at those protests in London and Londonistan. But Jack, I wonder if, as we know the character of the president and his inability to hold things in, which I like about him, do you think maybe now's the time that he could start talking about this jihad?
Well, I'm not sure if he's going to go to that step, because he's still trying to work with that Arab NATO that he started to put together when they did the big sword dance in Saudi Arabia. And you see some big changes going on in that country. Women are allowed to drive. Who would have thought that was going to come? So I don't think he's going to do that. I do think that he started in on Prime Minister May and talking about what's going on with Brexit for the folks in the UK, how it's being basically whittled down into nothing. I mean, you had one of the top guys, Boris Johnson. He just resigned a week ago, and I think President Trump said he would make a good prime minister. So he's already taken jabs that way. I have no problem with people protesting the president. What I do have a problem with is the London mayor allowed or permitted those folks to gather and assemble, when the people that wanted to gather and welcome President Trump on his visit to England, they were denied. Right there's the problem.
And the second guy on that clip said that, but I apologize, it was a little hard to hear. He was a lot softer spoken than the first guy. But all right, we'll have to pay attention to that. Unfortunately, we saved Europe, but there were so many houses were blown up that they almost had to take some type of government socialist type response so everybody could have housing. And then the rest is history. But all right, now I want to move. There was a meeting this weekend in Pittsburgh of the national teachers unions, and of course all the commies showed up. Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren. They all showed up, but Hillary Clinton was there too. Now, there's a couple things I want you to listen for in this clip. It's a couple minutes long. It's 5 minutes long, but I want you to listen for several things in this clip. The president, or the former presidential candidate, said that the president was trying to rip the heart out of America. Now, I want you to, first of all, remember the audience. This is the teachers that are teaching our children in government schools. And I want you to understand that the definition of progress is communism. And then the third thing I want you to listen for is projection. Because we have repeatedly showed that when the Democrats accuse anybody of doing anything, all they are doing is telling you what they've already done. So remember those three things, and let's listen to Hillary Clinton filling our children's teachers with hate.
And as Randy just reminded all of us, we have to gear up again, because the challenges we face now are truly unlike any that we've seen for quite some time. She went through the litany of the fights we have waged, and we thought we had won. And now the pressures and forces against progress are stronger than ever. They control our government, and they are determined to have their way.
Damn right.
Now, I am very grateful for your support during the 2016 campaign. And I'm even more grateful, however, that here and now you continue to stand up for the values we share. I believe...
Teachers clapping.
I believe with all my heart that the test of any society is how we treat the most vulnerable among us, particularly our youngest, our oldest, our people with disabilities. And right now, my friends, our country is failing that test. We have never seen such organized cruelty, disdain, and contempt for those values. People used to hide the way they felt.
That's you guys.
You know, they wouldn't come right out and say what they were thinking, which was good. That's part of the process of civilization.
Lying is a process of civilization.
Boy, not today. Over the last 18 months, this administration has tried to rip away health coverage for millions and to end coverage for people with pre-existing conditions. They've given tax cuts to the wealthiest few, and they've paid for them on the backs of children and working families. They've gutted funding for public schools and universities, and they've rolled back protections against discrimination for students. And unimaginably, they have ripped children away from their parents. They have forced toddlers as young as 1-year-olds
just one
to appear in court
naked.
We prefer ours on an island where we can take advantage of them
beyond politics,
without their parents being involved.
The inhumanity of it, the disgrace, the indecency of it.
Watch her go back, double down on deplorables.
Should incite all of us to know that we are not those people.
We're not those people.
But look at what else they have done. They tried just recently to block a World Health Organization resolution intended to raise awareness about the importance of breastfeeding babies.
Starve them.
And why do they do these things? Ideology, religion, corporate power.
Religion.
They have a lot of rationales and excuses. But the net result is that they are trying to rip the heart out of America. They want to turn us into transactional units where I get this and you get that. And it's like a man eat man, woman eat woman society. They want to turn us against each other. They want to divide and conquer. And I will tell you, I recently went back and reread those famous lines from Charles Dickens in A Tale of Two Cities.
Yeah, right.
Now, we all know the beginning, don't we?
Jesus.
It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. But then it goes on. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness.
Us.
It was the epoch of belief.
Them.
It was the epoch of incredulity.
Us.
It was the season of light. It was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. Now, Dickens may have been writing about the years leading up to the French Revolution, but he might as well have been writing about this moment in America, because fundamental rights, civic virtue, even facts, reason, and evidence are under assault. But at the same time, we are seeing an unprecedented outpouring of grassroots activism and energy. And that is, as Randy said, what gives us hope. 2 years ago, I said that teachers and paraprofessionals and school-related personnel and nurses and public service employees of AFT have some of the hardest, most
Shut up. Stacy, what do you think? I mean, is this, can you imagine being a younger Democrat politician and seeing this and going, oh man, not again?
Well, and that's exactly what my thought was as she was going through all of this, is that this is such the same old playbook. Oh, we're going to, how did they pay for it? Oh, on the backs of the children, and they've gotten their free lunches taken away, and on the backs of the teachers, and on the backs of the old. I'm absolutely, I get dumbfounded sometimes that they continue to go back to this playbook. They want division. They want to continue this. And I tell you this speech, listening to her, I was listening to the words, but after about halfway through, I had to tone it out because I get so sick of the BS that they continue to propagate. But her sound, the way that she's speaking, I feel like her mask got to come off. Like, she gets to sow the seeds of division. And sure, she's throwing out this is the best of times and the worst of times, and we're the good and they're the bad. It's the first time I've heard her sound passionate about anything. She sounds more natural than she ever has in any type of campaign speech that she ever gave in 2016. I don't know if that's indicative of some coaching because she plans to run in 2020. I hope so. I hope they put that woman up against Trump. But it's interesting to me because I feel like with everything that's going on, with all the division, with all of the resist movement, that she feels free to be herself and actually say what it is that she means, and she sounds more natural to me in this. And I know that sounds probably
that sounds
not
dead
what
on.
you were.
That sounds dead on. That's the reason I put the clip on there, because I felt the exact same way. I'm thinking this lady is starting out right from she's not going to hold back anymore, and that's great for us.
And she sounds more genuine. That was the word. I'm getting old. She sounds more genuine than I've ever heard her feel, because she gets to be who she is now.
Norway.
I agree with Stacy, except for the part of running in 2020. I mean, the lady can't even walk. But that was below the belt. But anyway, I'm thinking that this guy clapping and cheering in the audience, that's what's interesting me, because I mean, to me, it sounded like Hillary might have hired a new speech coach or speech writer or something like that. But I'm thinking about the guys in the audience.
Now, to be fair, you can check the video out on the Facebook page. They applauded, but it was more like applauding for Kim Jong-un.
It sounded like being nice. It didn't sound enthusiastic.
It was.
To me.
It was passive. Yeah, that is the way it was.
It's pretty much a captive audience, though, isn't it? Wasn't she talking to a bunch of educators?
A bunch of
and
union,
what have the Dems have been
members.
doing with education and indoctrination? To me, I was listening to it, and I'm like, please make it stop. And I started thinking, they say the waterboarding is torture. I'm telling you something right now. If you force somebody to listen to Hillary Clinton's speech for more than 5 minutes, they're giving up whatever you want to tell them.
Well, the thing is,
please.
The thing is, too, the way Democrats used to be able to win elections was by faking people out. Now, when you come out there and you paint this picture, there's a lot of people in the country that are 100% behind any immigration enforcement that happens out there. And for her to go down the line and talk about that issue and then turn around and say, we're not those people, you're giving up half the electorate in one sentence.
Yeah, and I think we are seeing a watershed in American politics and in American population right now, because it's from day to day, it's clear that the communists have taken over the Democratic Party. And I know there are a lot of good people that wants to do good and thus have voted for the Democrats because they believed that was the right thing to do. But I think we're going to see a change in that. And I haven't watched the news very closely this week because I've unplugged and gone fishing, literally. But I saw that Tom Hanks actually came out now with a statement that he thought that what Donald Trump is doing is good for the country, that America should unite, and he hoped to vote for Trump at the next election. So I think that is pretty monumental. I don't have very many stars I look up to in Hollywood, practically none at all. But Tom Hanks is one of the actors I really fancy, especially after he did Apollo 13 and the series From the Earth to the Moon. So maybe we're seeing a shift even in the higher circles of the American intelligentsia, if you want.
412-567-1460 if you want to call the show. There was one thing that really bothers me, and I've been harboring this feeling for several election cycles, but Barack Obama would have never been elected president of the United States if the media had been honest in their reporting. And then I see CNN's Jake Tapper saying that the Obama administration was asleep at the switch on Russian hacking. And I'm thinking, you son of a gun, your guys are the ones that were asleep at the switch. You're damn near in bed with the guy. You could tell, you knew what was happening.
Right. But they don't want to believe what's happening. I mean, they want to support the leftist ideology, the liberal progressive agenda. And it's got to be difficult at times if you have a modicum of, professionalism in you to see what's going on around them with regard to this. Because when they do you have to be that much of a thinking person to look at Peter Strzok's abysmal testimony on Thursday? On Friday, indictments are announced by Bob Mueller, and if you read through the report, it doesn't seem like it's anything different than what we found out when the 13 quote unquote intel agencies said that it was Russia. It didn't seem like there was additional information in these indictments. Right before Trump is to meet with Putin, and then you immediately have the Democrats on the mainstream media. I mean, at what point, if you have just a modicum of professionalism as a journalist, do you have to start really thinking about your part in what's going on right now?
I'll never forget, right after the president was elected, the first time, the President Obama, the first time, Peter Jennings and Tom Brokaw, or it might have been Charlie Rose. It was two of the top-notch guys, were talking on an interview show, and they admitted to each other that, Peter, we don't even know what Barack Obama's foreign policy is going to be. And
Exactly.
I remember thinking, what? After all that time on that campaign, you don't know? It's gone downhill from there. It really has. Ladies and gentlemen.
We saw it shortly after he was elected, what his foreign policy was, right?
Immediately.
Arab Spring.
And domestic policy. Cap and trade he tried to push. Ladies and gentlemen, your weekly jihad report for June 30th to July 6th. A little bit behind the power curve. 11 jihad attacks, 154 killed, 180 injured, 2 suicide blasts, all occurring in 12 countries. The religion of peace atrocity of the week, Pakistan, 133 dead. Other recent misunderstandings of Islam, on the 13th in Pakistan, an Islamist bomb targeting a politician leaves 5 dead. On the 13th, same day, same country, over 100 people at a political rally are wiped out by a suicide bomber. On the 11th, in Afghanistan, a dozen people are killed when an Islamic group storms an education compound in a suicide attack. On the 10th, in Pakistan, a secular politician and 19 supporters are murdered by a suicide bomb at a rally. On the 10th, Afghanistan, children working at a car wash are vaporized by a Shaheed suicide bomber. And finally, on the 9th, in India, a woman's throat is slit in her own home by suspected militants. The religion of peace, ladies and gentlemen, one body at a time.
Allahu Akbar, Allah.
I'll give one back to England right there. But anyway, guys, I'll tell you the story that I have floating around in my head. I don't know if this is chaff or if this is actually something that we should be excited about or watching. Apparently, the Freedom Caucus in the House is moving forward with plans to impeach Rod Rosenstein, possibly even starting Monday. Jack, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I saw that floated, but I think we saw that floated out about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and nothing happened. And now, after Rosenstein comes up and does a press conference where he basically says the same thing he did in the springtime, announcing indictments against Russians and saying that no American is involved. You have the same thing happening. To me, what Rosenstein did, whatever the deep state's pulling right here, is for one, to get the Sunday news cycles, because they're going to be going all over. It's Russia, and just without reading the information there, that's old news. It's already been stated. Nothing new there. But the left is using it to basically try to get the president not to meet with Vladimir Putin in Helsinki on Monday.
You think they'd learn that's not going to happen?
I think it's going to happen, and I'm trying to wonder why they do not want Putin to meet, or Trump to meet with Putin. And the only thing I can come up with is Putin has had to deal with the deep state folks for a long time, right?
Remember what I said about projection. What did the Democrats say about Donald Trump? They said that Putin has something on him. That's projection. Because Putin's got something on those communists. And he doesn't want them in the same room.
I would agree with you. I truly do think that's why they're pushing back so hard on a one-on-one meeting between Putin. I mean, they're disguising it as, oh my gosh, he's in Putin's pocket. But I agree with you. I think that there's something to be said for that theory, Hutch.
Norway, what's going on in your sector?
Just to take the tail end of that, I think you're right. This is projection, and you've seen projection all the way, both through the election cycle and now up to the midterm. So absolutely, I mean, if you hear Democrats accusing some Republicans of something, you can just reverse that and start looking in the Democratic ranks, because you're bound to find it there somewhere. In Norway, not really much.
Talk trout then.
Trout.
Did you catch any good ones?
Yeah, we caught some pan trouts. They were really delicious. So the fishing has been great. But I caught bits of the news this weekend, and we have practically heard nothing but the death of Stoltenberg the Elder, the father of Jens Stoltenberg, which is now the General Secretary of NATO. He died on Friday, and it's been completely overshadowing the news here. And it's horrible, because I see the same, and Stacey has said this many times, I see the same things going on in American media as in Norwegian media. They're so leftist, all of them, that it's practically impossible to get any news other than what they're serving up. And right now, they're building Thorvald Stoltenberg into this great superhero of Norway, which did a great deal for Yugoslavia. Well, actually, he more supported the Muslims in Yugoslavia than the Serbs. So, it's horrible when a few companies own all of the media, because you don't. That's all you get, whichever channel you switch on. So
that's true. Unfortunately, Jack, what's going on in Virginia?
Virginia?
Well, what's going on in your? What are you studying?
Well, the article that I was bringing was, Stacey had mentioned Stroke's unbelievable performance. The whole thing was a fiasco to me, although you got some memes and clips that people will use for the election cycle coming up. But on Friday, Lisa Page went into a closed-door hearing with the same group, the Joint Judiciary and Oversight, I think. I can't remember the other one. But this happened the same day with Rosenstein and Trump heading over, doing things at NATO, making headlines. So I don't think much of the information came out. But I found an article on the Gateway Pundit where a few reporters came out and was kind of relaying some of the things that came out of it. I just wanted to share some of these things with the listeners so to keep in their head, because she's supposed to go back Monday afternoon for the second part of this. But Politico reporter Kyle Cheney tweeted out, source briefed on the Lisa Page deposition says early focus of Republicans' questions was on her awareness of FBI's use of confidential human sources, in addition to the meaning of her text messages with Stroke. He also goes on to say, Representative Ratcliffe says Lisa Page answered many questions Stroke did not, and that lawmakers learned a lot of new information. He declined to provide any other details. So you've got a few tweets like that. And then Chad Peregrine, who's a Fox News Senate reporter, said, Meadows, Lisa Page is a very credible witness. She's doing her best to help us find out the truth, and I think in ways she's been falsely accused of not being willing to cooperate. We've learned evidence that would suggest that she's been willing to help in a spirit of transparency. Meadows also went out to tweet himself. Remarkably, we learned that new information today suggesting the DOJ had not notified Lisa Page of Congress's outstanding interview requests for over 7 months now. The DOJ, FBI appear to be continuing their efforts to keep material facts and perhaps even witnesses from Congress. So take from that what you will. Some people are taking it saying that she's flipped and she's going to just let everything out there. I'm not so sure about that. But just keep your eyes open. It's a closed testimony, so you're not going to hear it. The one thing that came out of it is I haven't heard one mention of a comment from the Democrat side. And if you watched the stroke open testimony, you saw how the Democrats were acting in that hearing. And coming out of this page closed hearing, they have nothing to say. Now, does that mean that, she's going to be giving up the goods or not? I'm not sure, but it's an interesting thing to keep an eye on.
Well, the Gateway pundit is usually over-optimistic when it comes to the right, in my opinion, in my experience with them. The article actually claimed that she was cooperating.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far.
So we'll have to see what happens. But a lot of times, Gateway pundit, you get the glass half full, man. I mean, it just
just give us the facts.
Too much clickbait over there.
Yeah, don't be like I think it's Hannity does that TikTok too many times.
Exactly.
TikTok.
Stacy, what's happening?
Yeah. So, in a couple of things that I wanted to bring up in Georgia, just for a little bit of good news against the swamp, even though it's a governor's race, still extremely important. We have a runoff here from our two top Republican candidates, and one is the lieutenant government. He is highly funded, highly part of the establishment. I don't necessarily consider him part of the swamp, if you will, at this point. But if I had to choose between the two, Kemp is running against him, and he was the Secretary of State. He's actually leading in polls now, has far less money, much more of a grassroots campaign at 44% to 41%. Casey Cagle is going extremely negative in his advertising right now, which means he must be seeing the same polls, and I think he's getting a little bit desperate. I don't know what will end up happening. Typically, the money might be able to bridge that gap simply in a get out the vote type of situation. We have a Democrat running. Stacey Abrams is her name, and I don't think that she'll win a red state, it being a state race. We have two Republican senators. I think we'll continue to have a Republican governor. It will just be interesting to see if the more establishment candidate or the grassroots candidate wins, and it looks like all the momentum is with the grassroots candidate, which is a good thing. If you guys hear me preach anything and often, and I know I sound like a broken record, but I've taken some points from the Democrats, and I think repetition is the key a lot of times. But Trump is the exactly right man at the right time, but he's going to be in office for 8 years, and it's going to be incumbent upon us to make sure that we continue to be involved in the grassroots to get the right kind of candidates in Congress, because as you see with the people like Flake and McCain out there, that you see that you can't always get the agenda that you want passed. And then the other thing I just wanted to bring up is the fact that I just wonder where this Paul Ryan has been all these years, where he is bringing a vote to the House floor about abolishing ICE. You've been hearing the Democrats talking about how we need to abolish ICE. Well, apparently they have come up with some legislation that they want voted on, that they, as typical, put something together they know has no chance in hell of passing, and whether or not it's being brought to the floor, largely depends on the speaker, and he's going to bring this to the floor and have them vote on it. And now the Democrats are like, what do you mean?
Oh, they tried to talk to Fidel Perez in charge of the DNC, and he wouldn't touch it. Eric Holder wouldn't touch it. Sean from California, welcome to the program. What's on your mind?
Hey, Hutch and Stacy, Jack and Norway. How you guys doing?
Pretty good, man.
Great to have you.
Great.
Well, I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update in California. It's kind of getting better a little bit. I just wanted to say that one of the former candidates, grassroots candidates, Travis Allen in my state, came out and said, pretty much, I think it was either today or yesterday, that we should just, vote for any type of Republican down the line for California, because anything for Gavin Newsom is just going to really suck. And I agree with him on that, even though he lost the race, and I was hoping he would win the, primaries, we need to get a Republican in there. And, this guy, John Cox, I don't like him one bit, but, it's either him or Gavin Newsom, and that's what we're facing right now. I don't go to the polls. I don't check on that stuff because I don't trust them with a 50-foot pole. I really don't. And so do I know if, he's ahead in the lead? No, I don't. But, I'm pushing the narrative out there as much as I can on social media that you got to vote Republican for this state. Otherwise, everything's gone.
Guys?
If we get Gavin Newsom, we're screwed.
Yeah, the Democrats even, they have a proposition out there for to split California into 3 separate states. And
wait,
this one,
I thought it was the Republican.
No, this one is set up to basically maximize the Democrat control and increase their senatorship threefold. For instead of 2, there'd be 6, because you've had conservative movements. They wanted the state of Jefferson, which was going to combine part of Oregon and Northern California. These things that go nowhere. If a proposition gets to the ballots to where the voters go, you can guarantee you the Democrats have something to do with this.
Yeah, I heard about that. I've been researching a little bit. A lot of states are wanting to leave. Counties that are Republican are wanting to leave California. Like, they're wanting to do the Jefferson thing that you're talking about. I think that's on the ballot this November for that, actually.
But that's not Jefferson. That's not the state of Jefferson. This is totally Democratic. If you take a deep dive into that and look what they're trying to create, it would be devastating to the Republicans in California.
Thanks for calling, Sean. Appreciate it.
No problem. See you later.
All right, there we go. Let's see if we can squeeze in winners and losers here. We'll go to Stacy. Winners and losers for the week.
Oh, gosh.
If you don't have them, just say so, because I don't either.
Come back to me. Give me 2 minutes.
Jack.
Yes, I'm going to put a link in the chat room for my winners. And what it is I like to learn something every day. And today I learned that there are more rattlesnakes out there in the United States than I knew about. Because out in Texas, one of the parks out there posted a picture of what is called a banded white rattlesnake. And this thing, it's a trip. It was found in the city. And let me get this article up here so I can read you the most amusing thing. Because I knew about eastern diamondback rattlesnake, western diamondback, sidewinder out in the desert, and the timber rattler, which is around here. But here you have this new one, and there's a photo in that thing. This is in the city. And the funniest thing, if you read the article, you see some comments when they posted it out. One comment said, "Now a brother ain't even safe on concrete," wrote Kevin Lucas in response to the photo. But so I'm sharing it. So hopefully, if you already knew about it, then that's on me. But if you haven't, there's a snake out there can sort of blend in with the city folk, the city aspect. So that's my winner because I learned something, and hopefully some of the folks listening learned something from it as well. My loser is Stacy had touched on it. It's the Democrats and their Abolish ICE movement. And while I think it's the games that Ryan is playing childish, trying to bring it to the floor to force them to vote, and because there is a midterm election coming up, it's kind of, to me, that's a waste of our time. But it is going to highlight their hypocrisy on their movement of abolishing ICE, which is doing a great job.
All right, Norway.
My week's winner this week will have to be your president, Mr. Donald Trump, because he stood up to NATO. And I think the job he's doing with getting up the percentage of GDP to 2% is phenomenal. Right now, American taxpayers are paying, well, I only have the 2016 figures, but in 2016, American taxpayers paid 3.6% of the gross domestic product in NATO.
And what did Germany? Germany pitched in like 1.2.
1.2 exactly, and Norway 1.5. We've been promised by the current government, which is supposedly a conservative government, that it should be raised to 2% in Norway, but it's around 1.5 still, and for 1.56 to be precise. But for the next 2 years, it seems like it's going to hold on 1.5%, which is really, really disappointing because, I mean, America is pulling the load, American taxpayers are pulling the load, and it's not fair because we're talking about some really rich countries in Europe, but the politicians here, they choose to spend money on Muslim immigration to tear down the social structures in our societies instead of the common defense that NATO is supposed to be.
And the thing is that they live there.
Exactly. It's suicidal.
You can't come up with 2 cents on a dollar to protect yourself. Come on, man.
Absolutely insanity.
I have mine now, Hutch.
Okay, you're next. Loser.
Loser.
No,
I would say
Norway still has a loser.
Do what?
Norway still has a loser.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's very simple. It's the General Secretary of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg, and Norwegian. So, done deal. Go ahead, Stacey.
I am so sorry. I thought you did the loser first. While I was trying to think there, I totally dropped the ball on the losers and winners this week. Okay, so if I had to pick a loser, it's got to be Christopher Wray. I think Stroke's testimony, having to confer with FBI lawyers to answer a simple question that we all know the answer to, just really shone a spotlight on Christopher Wray. I would have him in the hot seat, or I would move for impeachment of Christopher Wray. I think that obviously Stroke was a huge loser in his narcissistic, unself-aware person that he portrayed himself to be in the hearing was unbelievable. But I felt like it really shone a light on Christopher Wray.
I forgot about that part about him. Looking just like any other gangster, man, leaning into his lawyers like that. And he's an FBI, a senior FBI official.
Absolutely. And the fact that they were preventing him from answering questions that are the whole situation is a big slow roll to the midterms, and the hope and praying and wishing that the Democrats will take back the House and stop this investigation. That is all they are doing, and it is infuriating. I was literally wanting to scream all day during that testimony. I was over Stroke after his grandstanding and preening in the first 30 minutes, but just the fact that the people who've been installed by Donald Trump are preventing the American people from understanding what is truly going on is making me want to scream. It makes me want to do something, and I'm just not exactly sure what that is. So that's my loser.
I agree 100%. And this is what I mean when I talk about Sessions. Okay, you're obstructing. I mean, you're recused from one case, but you're not recused from being the Attorney General.
No, you are not. And you need to march your butt down there and say, get this crap settled now. It's ripping our country apart, and there is no need for it. If there is really nothing to hide, then tell us there's nothing to hide. Give Congress the information, give American people the information, and let us all move forward. I think everyone who listens to this show know that there's something to hide. But a lot of people don't. There are a lot of people who are buying into the mainstream media talking points about what's going on, and it's ripping our country apart.
And Dershowitz said it clearly that the indictment, which, by the way, a couple of you mentioned, was the same as the one in April. I read an analysis that did it point for point, and it was the same as what came out in April. And to bring that out again, Dershowitz clearly shows there was never a need for a special counsel. You know, this whole thing is bull.
There has never been a need.
Jack.
Yeah, and guess who's ostracized? Who can't even go to the Hamptons now? You know, is Dershowitz.
I know, poor Dershowitz.
Oh, but hey, I give him his props for being one of the long-standing, because you're talking about decades of him. He was always a hammer for the left, the liberal side, and he always made good points for his side. He's basically by doing what he's doing now, he's basically saying this party has left me out in the cold.
No.
Stacey or winner?
He'll be walking away.
Winner.
My winner is America, and I will tell you why. To have a president who will go over and speak the truth to NATO, to say you're not holding up your responsibility, to speak the truth to Germany and say, you want us to protect you and you're giving billions to Russia. You want us to protect you from Russia and you're giving billions to him for your energy. Unacceptable. And then the final thing is that he spoke truth in the news conference about immigration. And you may not like to hear it, but he said it outright. This is ruining your country. This is ruining your culture, and we will not do it here. And it was so America was the winner this week.
Excellent. And I'll tell you that's what prefaced my question earlier about, do you think that he's going to start bringing this up? Because he actually already did. And he called it out. He didn't mince words. He said it's destroying your culture. And that's what it is doing, and that's what it's going to do here. So that I pray that he stays on that. We need somebody in a bully pulpit that can start articulating this jihad mess. Ladies and gentlemen, we're out of time. Stacey, how can people get in touch with you in final comments?
Thank you guys for having me. It's been a pleasure as usual. You guys can most easily reach me at DiscoveringMe40 on Twitter and the Right Rush on Gab. Y'all have a great rest of the weekend.
Jack.
Oh, I'm here every Saturday. I want to thank everyone in the Spreaker chat room. You can reach me via Gab at Jack at Mountain. Big shout out to James Chief, who's in the chat room tonight, one of the co-hosts for the Wayne Dupree Show that goes live Monday through Friday.
All right, Norway.
Excellent. I hope the sound quality hasn't been too bad tonight. I'm out in the fishing base camp, so it's a little makeshift here, but we're trying our best. You can reach me at Norway for Trump, and that's at Norway 4 with a number 4 on Twitter and Gab. And it's been an absolute pleasure co-hosting with you, Jack and Stacey, and thanks for having me on, Hutch.
All right. Thank you guys. All did an excellent job as usual. New station out there, ladies and gentlemen, americasvoicenews.com. americasvoicenews.com. James Chief in the chat room, Wayne Dupree, and I will be on that network very soon. We're actually on the website already. Go check it out. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr. on Facebook, Bird's Eye View on Twitter. I want to thank everybody for listening live, participating in the chat room, and for all of those of you that listen to the podcast later. Thanks for letting us into your life for 1 hour, ladies and gentlemen. God bless.